cars and cooking. I have to change the heater core on Nigel. But first, we're going to make an Italian recipe called Panzerotti. When I lived in Italy, in San Vito, the Americans called it fritelli. It's similar to calzone, but it is stuffed and fried rather than baked. So I'm going to get started on making the fritelli, and while the dough is rising, I'm going to go outside to change the heater core on Nigel. So the ingredients for the flour is simple, or for the recipe is simple. Best to use Italian doppio zero semolina, 00 flour. I order it off of Amazon. There's all sorts of different brands. This was the brand I chose this time. I've used other brands as well. Yeast, fast rising preferably. You're gonna let the dough rise for an hour to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And salt and sugar. I have an old sugar tin that someone gifted me. It had Italian biscotti in it, almond biscotti. So I lived in Italy for about 5.5 years, and actually my dad's side of the family is Sicilian. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I've got my all my ingredients set out, the water that I'll need to mix the dough. So 4 cups of flour. See if I can get this thing open. I should have opened it. This is a 1/4 cup, so keep in mind that the measurement of the flour does not need to be precise. It can overflow. It doesn't have to be evenly spread across the top of the cup. Like I said, this is a 1/4 cup, so 2 teaspoons of salt, sale. 4 teaspoons of zucchero, sugar. Actually, I have a lot of fond memories of this recipe. We used to go over to the Liuzzi's house in San Vito de' Normani. Mr. Liuzzi worked with my dad, who worked for 72, 75th SPS. Yeah, security police. So he worked with the security police. I'm adding the yeast now. So I'm going to go ahead and combine this real quick before I start slowly adding my water. And so I can start making it into a ball and kneading it. You're going to have to kind of guesstimate on the water. You can use anywhere from probably about 2-ish cups of water. You don't want the dough to be too wet, and you don't want it to be too dry. So that one's always kind of, you want to guesstimate on how much water to use. I love playing in dough. I find it really, really therapeutic. And as I was saying, I have a lot of fond memories of being out at the Liuzzi's house with my family. Just frying fritellis during the summer. We typically ate these during the summer. I know in Italy now people make them year round, but alright, so I'm gonna relocate my flour to my cutting board here. Once you knead it, I do love the smell of the yeast and the dough when it's rising. I don't know, it's a really comforting smell to me. I'm gonna add some more water here. And so, since the dough does have to rise a couple of hours, be a good time to go outside and change the heater core on Nigel while it's rising. And then I'll come back and roll out individual balls and stuff them with prosciutto and mozzarella e pomodori. It doesn't look like a lot of dough yet, but once it rises, it's gonna double in size. And this will make about 8 good-sized fratelli. Like I said, they're gonna be stuffed, And they're pretty filling, obviously, with the bread. Makes it somewhat filling. Alright, so I'm going to coat my bowl. Oh my goodness, I can't get it out. With some olive oil. Just a little light coating. Toss my dough into the bowl. Alright, so the oven was preheated earlier to 250 degrees. Do turn it off before you put the dough in to rise. Because you don't want to bake the dough at 250 degrees. You just want the warmth of the oven. Close it up after you've covered it gently with tin foil, not tightly but loosely. The dough will rise, and check it in about an hour, hour and a half. See how it's doing. If it's risen, you can go ahead and take it out, and we'll go on to the next step. So that's it for now. I'm about to head out to work on Nigel and change this heater core. The heater is blowing out cool to lukewarm, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that changed. Alright, we'll see you in a little bit. So, gonna change the heater core in Nigel today. Got this heater core from a 94 Mustang, so hopefully it will push out a little bit more heat than Nigel's original heater core. Picked it up for $23 versus almost $200 for the mini part. Everything matches up as far as the size goes. The only difference in this is the hose fittings aren't in the proper place, so we'll go ahead and make some modifications to make that work today. Also, peak antifreeze 50/50. I usually don't buy 50/50 antifreeze because it doesn't make a lot of sense to buy water to put in the car, but Harbor Freight sells it for $8 and some change. With the coupon, you can get it for $6 and some change. So rather than going to your local auto parts store and paying almost twice the price, I'm frugal. I like to save money. I do it all the time. I'm always looking for a bargain. That's why I like to shop at Marshalls and Ross too. Not that I'm a shopper, but again, frugal is frugal's life. I'm not cheap, I'm frugal. There is definitely a difference in that. So that's what we're going to do today. The sun has hidden again behind the clouds, so while I have my jacket off now, I might toss it on later. I don't like the cold. I prefer warm weather. So that's going to get started on that. Going to change the, going to drain the coolant first. So I just removed the seat to give myself some extra room. To get underneath the dash to remove that heater core. So I'm going to go ahead, and the great thing about this job is it only requires two tools, a flathead screwdriver and a Phillips screwdriver. The hose clamp on this particular hose actually has a flathead screw in it. Typically you're going to find a Phillips head rather than that. So alright, so Nigel's an 82 Mini. Pretty simple. Underneath the dash are two screws. Both are Phillips heads. Gonna remove those Phillips head screws if you can see them. And this housing should pop down. I'm gonna do a compare and contrast on this. I actually had a 66 Mustang in Colorado when I lived there. And one winter the heat went out. I decided I was going to change the heater core in the driveway. It was a pain in the ass. After many hours of becoming a contortionist, I just couldn't get the sucker out. So I drove the entire winter scraping the inside of my window rather than asking for help and getting that heater core out. I did it in the spring. One thing I learned when working on my Mustang, you know, shop manuals tell you a job will take X amount of hours. Oh, that'll be easy. It should only take this much time. Never say that. You jinx yourself every time. So I don't follow the time they give you. So you see it's popping down. You get the screw out. There it goes. Alright, so we've got a couple hoses here on the side. that we're going to remove on the passenger side, there's also a hose. I'm going to take that off, unless if it hasn't popped off already. Alright, got the heater box out. What I like about the Mini is the heater core is actually in its own assembly versus when I did the Mustang, it was in the firewall and you had to get to it from the passenger side as well as the inside of the engine compartment. Not an easy task even with small hands. It was pretty tight. So, as I mentioned, the heater box is out. So the housing has screws all the way around it. I actually have a few already out. I'm going to go ahead and remove the remainder of the screws on the top, and then we're going to slide the side of the housing out. As I mentioned, the 94 Mustang heater core, or as they call it in England, my friends call it the heater rad because it looks like a little radiator. The hose fittings are not in the same place as the Mini, as Nigel's. So these are top and bottom. You've got the hose fittings here in the center. So we'll make it work. Again, simple tools for this job. Screwdrivers. I'm not sure the last time, if ever, this heater core has been changed. So let's see about sliding this housing off gently without... Alright, so the housing unit is off. And there's the heater core. Doesn't look like that sucker's been changed for a long time. So, pretty easy. Slide it out. It's almost like a beehive. You slide in and out of its little, or if you're like a beekeeper and you slide it out of the little housing to get the honey, except for there's no honey. It's pretty nasty. There's old radiator fluid. Antifreeze, if you would. Don't feed the animals. The housing is pretty dirty, so might want to kind of clean that out before I put this pretty new heater core in. It's all the old rust and stuff, so I'm going to clean that out real quick before I put the new heater core in, and we'll have to drill some holes to remount or to reinsert the hose fittings. The heater core has been successfully installed in Nigel. Unfortunately, ran into some technical issues. Charge your battery before you start recording. Make sure it's fully charged before you start recording. Had to do some additional modifications on the heater core. It was a bit longer than Nigel's original heater core, but managed to make it work. And the plus side of that is it's actually going to be easier to remove in the future. Don't have to remove the heater core housing. You can just slide it out now after you remove the two hoses coming in. So that's the benefit of this fabrication. As I said, it was unexpected according to the measurements. They were supposed to be the same size, but evidently they were measuring differently than I was. So heater core is installed. The heater is working well, much more heat now. So that is also another benefit in using a newer heater core rather than the original one. My stomach is now growling, so it's time to go finish these fratelli so we can eat. Alright, so the dough has risen, and while the dough was rising, I successfully installed the heater core on Nigel. So, allora, iniziamo. We're about to roll out the dough, so I made a small ball of the dough. Coat your surface with flour. Otherwise it's going to stick and you're not going to be happy. And you're hungry, I'm hungry, we want to eat at this point. You know, working on a car makes you hungry. And I was hungry before I started this, so I had a little snack in between Nutella, which is also Italian. However, mine I ordered off of Amazon and it's made in Mexico. Don't ask, I don't know. Evidently, the Nutella sold in stores is made in Canada. And let me tell you, I'm a Nutella fiend. They all taste different. So, and if you're ever in Chicago and you love Nutella, okay, this is probably a girl thing and not a guy thing. Although, comment, guys, if you like Nutella. I want to know. There's the Nutella Cafe, and it is phenomenal. But anyhow, we've got our pomodori, which is tomatoes in Italian. I've got prosciutto, our ham, and mozzarella. I did a little bit of a fresher mozzarella, not the dried like cube. So it doesn't matter how you layer it. Make sure you place it in the center. Try not to put too much of that tomato juice in it, because it will make the dough soggy. So layer it. The more cheese, the merrier. If you're lactose intolerant, take something before you eat. I love cheese, so wrap it. Seal it tightly. If it's not sealed tightly and you toss that sucker in the oil, it's either A, gonna pop open, maybe slightly, maybe more, and that oil's gonna pop at you. Normally I'd wear an apron, but I just finished working on the car, so obviously I don't mind getting a little dirty. I love playing in flour. Flour is just like, I feel like a little kid when I play in flour. Getting dirty and dusty and... Alright, so we've got it folded, cut off some of the edges. We're about to... Let me make sure it's sealed. I just said make sure it's sealed and I got it wide open. I'm going to be in for a bigger mess and possibly get burned by the oil. Alright, so we're going to take this over to the frying pan. Fry it 1 to 2 minutes on each side till it's lightly brown. And if you can see, it looked like it might have popped open a little bit on the side. I don't hear it, but it's about to pop open. So, fritelli is the American name for Panzerotti. Don't go to Italy and ask for fratelli, or as some people call it, fratelli, F-R-A. Fratelli means brother, so if you go to Italy and say vorrei I fratelli, you're asking for brothers, and I don't think that's what you want. So, there you go, it's browned, ready to eat. Eat it warm. It will be hot on the inside, but you don't want to necessarily eat it cold. It's like calzone, or as Americans say, calzone, but the E is actually pronounced, so it's calzone, not calzone. So, that's it. Alright, I'm back. The fritelli came out perfetto, perfect. So, I'm gonna give it a try. But before I do, an Italian dish is never complete without an Italian birra. So we've got some Peroni to wash it down. Buonissimo. It came out perfect. Buon appetito a tutti. Ciao, buon anno, ciao ciao.